Montreal Canadiens Talking Habs subscriber Q&A, and that's coming right up. In this video, I'll be taking your questions that I've received on YouTube and Twitter. I'll tell you what I think and how I see it, and that's all right here at Talking Habs with Rick. That's me. If you love the Habs like I do, why not subscribe and ring the bell? And that'll notify you of all my videos, live streams, contests, and podcast news. Man, that list is getting longer. And it's all dedicated to the Habs and all things hockey. And you can leave any comments down below. First question. Freeps Peeps asks, what type of season do you expect from Jonathan Drouin? Should Montreal trade him? And where could they trade him? Good questions. Those are good questions, Freeps. So what type of season do I expect from Jonathan Drouin? Well, in a previous video, I've said that I think he'll get about 60, 61 points. I think I have him at 21 goals and 40 assists. And this is based on the fact that I fully expect that the Habs power play is going to be a little better. And since Drouin's been the highest scorer on the power play, I think he had 18 points last season, by far leading the team. I would expect to get 7 or 8 points more than the 53 he had this past season. Isn't a big leap. Do I expect him to have that breakout season? I really don't. I'm hoping he does, because it looks like Montreal's keeping him, although we can't really tell. But I'm hoping he has a great season if he's going to play here in Montreal. I'm going to root for him and all that, but I just don't see it. I just don't see it. He doesn't. He really lets down in the big games. Yes, he'll have some fantastic games, but I mean, look at last season, the last 26 games. It would have been okay if he had, would he have 7 points in 26 games? And that's okay if he would have tried harder, given second effort, back-checked, didn't disappear on how many nights where you literally went like, where's Drouin? If a guy at least is giving his full effort, trying every shift, not taking any nights off, but still can't find the net, can't pull the trigger, that can happen. People go through slumps, and you can understand it as long as the guy's giving you what you consider 100%. I don't see that from Drouin. In the games that mattered the most, he wasn't there. Not that he didn't do anything, he wasn't there. That's what it looked like. And I think a lot of people agree with me. Now, should Montreal trade him? Well, I think my opinion on that's pretty out there. I think if you're going to trade him, this is the season, because his value is still pretty good. You'll get back a roster player for him. I think if you wait till next year and he doesn't have that breakout season, his value is going to go down. And I don't know if you're going to get back a roster player, or at least a roster player with that potential. More than likely you'll get somebody on the roster that's not special and a draft pick. So, do I think they should trade him? I think if the deal is there, a good deal, not just give him away, you got to get value back. If there's a deal there and he can pull the trigger, I say yeah. Especially if you can get that left-hand defenseman, number 2 defenseman, power play quarterback we're looking for. I'm not convinced they are going to trade him this season. It doesn't look like they are. So I don't know. So now, for what targets, where could they trade him? I would have thought Philadelphia to get Goss's beer, and I imagine the deal with Philadelphia isn't totally off the table. If we look back last season, Max Pacioretty was traded. I think training camp had started, or it was like just about to start, and they traded Pacioretty. So I don't rule it out. And with Marc Bergevin, holds the cards close to the chest. You're not going to find out till something happens. So where would he go? Well, I think Philadelphia, definitely an option. I think anywhere that has a piece that we can use, and I'm talking someone to fill that right wing spot, a defenseman to fill that power play quarterback spot, something like that. Any team like that, and I haven't researched it enough to know, other than Philadelphia, where to send him. But remember, he's making 5.5, so you can't send him to a team that's hard on the cap. There's got to be a team that's got room and somebody who's worth getting somebody back from. So I've been thinking about doing a video on Drouin, but I'm not sure. Okay, so we're going to get to question number 2. Hockey Sticks asks, do you feel MB is finished making moves this offseason? Do you see any targets for Montreal? Great camera work, eh? Do I feel MB is finished making moves this offseason? I kind of do. I'm one of those guys that kind of feels I think the defense is good enough. And there's a question later on. I don't want to get too deep into why I feel that, because I'm going to answer that a little later. But do I think he's finished making moves? It all depends. Like I was just saying, Bergevin keeps the cards close to his chest. He doesn't let anybody really know. He keeps leaks from happening in general, I find. But I kind of sort of feel that way, but I also think there's a possibility he'll try to fill that role that Shaw had. That, you know, Shaw's gone, so we got that hole on the right wing in the second line. I don't know if they're really planning to fill that internally, or if there's a deal out there that makes sense, will he go for it? And I kind of think he will, depending on cost, who it is, all that kind of thing. So the second question was, do I see any targets for MB? And I've mentioned this in the video before. I do. I think a team like Calgary, who's up against the cap and really needs to sign Matt Tkachuk, they need to get rid of some kind of salary. And there's a good target there is Michael Frolik. Yes, he's not going to he's not going to score a ton of points. I know that, but he's a 6'2", somewhere around 200-pound right winger. He plays a physical game. Not as mean as Shaw maybe, but he still plays a physical game. He's got a little more size than Shaw had, and he'll bring you approximately the same points, somewhere around 40, a little over 40, maybe just under. He's got 1 year left on a $4.3 million cap hit that Calgary would love to, I'm sure, get rid of, because they need to find money to pay Tkachuk, and Tkachuk's probably coming in around $9 million. And they don't have that right now. So I think that makes sense, because it's just the 1 year. So it's one season. At the end of the season, that cap money is gone. You don't have to worry about it. And you still have the money you need to pay your kids. You haven't spent that going down the road. Which is, you know, if you sign a UFA, yeah, he uses that money you have for this year. But then he uses it next year too. You don't have that money for anybody else. So in this case, it's not a problem. You don't have to buy him out. There's a lot, you know, it's 1 year. It doesn't hurt you. So I think that's a really good target. I don't know of anybody else that's in that situation in the league. So I think that's a good target for him. So we'll get to question number 3, and hopefully better camera work. Patty Mack asks, in what ways do you feel Montreal is an improved team? Good question, Patty Mack. So this question from Patty Mack is a question I've seen a lot on Twitter, actually. I've seen a lot of arguments over it on Twitter when people give their opinion. So here's mine. Okay, this is how first of all, the addition of Ben Sherratt, good move. It's a piece that we really needed that's been missing for a couple of years, and that's a solid, tough defenseman that's going to protect the crease, protect Carey Price, cuts down on high chance. Now I'm losing the wording, but you know, really good scoring chances, and he turns them into not as good scoring chances. That's what happens when you get old. So I think Ben Sherratt's a big improvement on the back end. No, he's not the power play quarterback that we want. He's not a power play quarterback. He's not the number 2 defenseman that we wanted on the left side, no. But I think he's a big improvement overall on that defense. Number 2. Who else did he bring in now? I'm trying to think. It was Nick Cousins and... totally blanking. Not good. Hang on a sec. Oh, yeah. Keith Kincaid. So backup goalie, I think, is going to be improved. I think Keith Kincaid, yeah, his numbers kind of sucked last year, I get it, but he was in a starting role more than a backup, and I think he's a backup goalie, and he, you know, his starting minutes are for a long period of time, like 40 games, and not his thing. Can he replace Price for a while if he gets hurt? Yes, definitely for short periods, and I imagine in an extended situation, he's adequate. But definitely as a backup goalie, he's an improvement over what we've got. He's going to allow Price to take some nights off that he wouldn't have been before, and you're not worried as much as far as the points and the wins. So that's an improvement. Another way this team's improved that I don't see a lot of people saying this, but I think if you look at the ages on this team, a good portion of this team are made up of guys that are in their prime, just coming into their prime, or, you know, a year or 2, maybe 3 years away from their prime. So what it means is a young team that's improving on a yearly basis, right? Season from season. Yes, the odd guy will have, you know, a fall off. And then there's going to be a couple that have career years and just keep moving forward, right? So on a team with a lot of talent that is young, I expect an improvement just in that it's the next season. Some of these guys are they're entering their 3rd season, so it's going to be improved just on that. Boy, this is going to be a long video. Sorry about that. Yeah, I think that they improved just right there. So those are 3 ways that I see them improving without bringing in the number 1 center and blah, 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 blah. Because the kids, there's a number 4, the kids, Suzuki, Paling, Kokiniemi's getting better. It's got to translate, and we got to give them a shot. Kamloops Kenny, funny name, asks, where will Montreal finish in the standings? That's a question I get a lot. Yeah, that's a question I get a lot, and I'm going to combine that with get this also, and I didn't put that here as I could have. Do I think they'll make the playoffs? Those are kind of 2 of the highest percentage of questions I get asked. So where do I think they'll finish in the standings? And I'll combine it with, and do I think they'll make the playoffs? Okay, I have them, I think in a video already, that I have them in 4th place. Fighting for a wild card spot, but I think they'll make the playoffs and grab, I kind of think they'll grab that first wild card spot. I also think it's possible that they'll finish in 3rd, because you never know how a season goes, who's going to get injured, how that could affect any teams. You've got Toronto with the Marner thing. Who knows how that's going to affect them if he gets signed, if he doesn't, blah, 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 right? You've got Florida probably moving up into that with Bobrovsky. But what if Bobrovsky gets hurt during the season? You don't know. I'm not saying I want him to get hurt, but I'm just saying these are the things you don't know. That could change. But I see them as 4th place. I see Boston falling out behind, and I don't think Buffalo is ahead of us. I've seen a lot of places where they have Buffalo ahead, and they have Montreal in either 5th or 6th. I don't see that. So yeah, I see them in 4th place, and I see them making the playoffs. From Ray's Jays, he asks, Guy Carbonneau was elected to the Hall of Fame this year. Your thoughts on Guy Carbonneau? Yeah, good question. Guy Carbonneau was a great player who really deserves the Hall of Fame election. I know some people say because there were other players that they thought should have gotten it. No, Guy Carbonneau was well deserved of his Hall of Fame election. I don't know if a lot of people know this, that in juniors he was a high scoring winger or center. Put up a lot of points in junior. But the Canadiens, when they drafted him, they converted him into a defensive center. And it was a good move because along with Bob Gainey and Chris Nyland, for many years they were the checking line. They shut down the other the other team, and they all could put the puck in the net on their own a little bit. Carbonneau, I think, regularly got it in the 20s in goals, and a really great player, and really transitioned from being an offensive forward to a defensive forward, and he did it well. A good leader, deserved of the captaincy. I believe he won was he the captain in 86 or 93? 93 captain when they won the cup. Unless I got that wrong, but I'm pretty sure. A really good election to the Hall of Fame, well deserved by Guy Carbonneau. I used to do Weed Man. I don't know if anybody knows what that is. Lawn care stuff, and I had to do his house once. I didn't get to meet him, but I had to do his house on in Il Bazar here in Montreal. I imagine he was somewhere else because he's all over the place. I think he was working for, I can't remember what team, like St. Louis probably at the time, it was a while back. But yeah, so Guy Carbonneau, great player, great defensive player, but was a great offensive player in junior, so people didn't know that. On to the next question. Now, Francois Cachon asks, will Carey Price win a cup in Montreal? Will he play out his contract here? Will Shea Weber? 3 good questions. So, will Carey Price win a cup with Montreal? I hope so. He deserves to. I think his window is starting to close. With the way things are going, I think he has the opportunity in the next 2 to 3 years. And I think if he really determined, he could be a big part of the reason why they win the cup and they're pushed to it, if he really wants to get there, because I don't think they're ready next year unless by fluke. You know, when you make the playoffs, things can happen. That's the way they can win, and I can see that possibly happening, especially considering how last season ended up. But yeah, I think his window's closing. He's got to win the cup in the next 4 years here to do that. Will he play out his contract here? That will depend on his health and his willingness to be possibly a backup or play split time anyway in his final couple of years, especially if Caden Primo comes on and is as good as we think. So I think it'll depend on that. I'd like to think that, yes, I think he's the kind of guy that will stick it out and play here in whatever role is needed of him. And so I think he kind of will, unless there's an injury and he can't go on. Will Shea Weber, with 7 years left or 6 years left on his contract, I don't think Shea Weber does. I think Shea Weber will be here for that window of 2 to 4 years, and after that, I don't think so. He's got the kind of contract that's not a problem. He can retire, won't affect us. It'll affect Predators more than anything. So there's my answers on that. Maple Leaf Gods asks, do you think Montreal is too small to make the playoffs or to win the cup? Yeah, it's a good question, and it's been coming up a lot lately. Need a steady hand. Okay, so do I think the Habs are too small to make the playoffs or win the Stanley Cup? And by the way, thanks to Maple Leaf Gods. Happy to have Maple Leaf fans asking questions and participating here. Okay, so I guess they're not too small to make the playoffs. No. Could they be a little bigger? Yes, and it's why I'm kind of suggesting Frolik. It's one of the reasons why I would suggest Frolik as earlier in this video. I think there are positions that can get bigger, but do you just get bigger and sacrifice talent? No. If you can replace a smaller guy with a guy who's bigger and has at least the same talent level, then I'm okay with that. Unless it's a guy that we all love. But you know what I mean. So do I think they're too small to make the playoffs? No, I don't. The next question is, do I think they're too small to win the Stanley Cup? And that depends. And in the playoffs, I'll give you, it's a little harder. Having a little bit more size does help. But again, you need talent. So there could be years like, you never know, there could be years where all the big teams do get knocked out or whatever. And they can win the Stanley Cup, yes. Will they win the Stanley Cup remaining this small? I don't know, and that's a fair question. So I would like to see them get a little bigger, but I don't want to see them trade guys away at random just because they're small, to bring in guys that can't play as well. I don't think that does anything for you. I think it just makes you a worse team. So I've been getting that question a lot, and the next question is going to be from a couple of people that have been in live streams lately. Give me a lot of. So anyway, we're going to get to the next question. So this question comes from an ongoing, I guess, discussion debate with 1111, who's a subscriber, and Happy Nation, obviously another subscriber. Just 1111, that's his name, 1111. And they're kind of on me about the size of this team. So how important is size in today's NHL? That I'm going to answer, give my opinion in a second. Okay, so how important is size in today's NHL? Now, 1111 and Hab Nation, at least in the live streams, would have everybody believe that everybody's got small, under 6 feet has to go. And we need to bring in this guy and that guy and this guy and that guy. And it's nice to say, and look, the players that they're saying bring in, I don't disagree that we would be nice on our team necessarily, but how are you going to do that? Who are you going to give those teams to get those guys? It's not going to happen. So, in light of that, how important is size in today's NHL? Size is important, there's no doubt, and I'm not making it, there's no pun intended there. Size is important. You need to have enough big guys definitely on your team so your team doesn't get pushed around. I'll give that I have never said that's not the case. What I am saying is that you don't have to be a big guy to make it in the NHL. A team can have small guys. You can draft small guys because small guys give you something different than big guys do. They usually are more talented. They usually are better skaters. They have a lower center of gravity. They're better on their skates. They do a lot better things that way. They're usually more athletic and move around. This is what I'm saying. So to say that I won't have a small guy because he's 5'9", or in Cole Caulfield's case, he's 5'7", and I want to bring in this big goony guy because he's got size, I don't agree with that. So that's what I'm saying. You need the right mix of big guys and smaller guys in order to make it. That's what I think. So I can answer that 100 times more, but this is what I've been saying all along, and that's my answer. So I'm going to end it right here. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And subscribe and ring the notifications bell to get all my videos, live streams, contests, and podcast news. And I'm going to add to that list, I'm sure, over time for your daily fix of Bleu Blanc Rouge. And join me Saturday night. Join me for Saturday night Hockey Talk live stream. That's how I wrote it. Every Saturday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And look for me this week on the Have a Listen podcast. I hope to be there all season. I'm guesting this week, and we're going to see how it goes. And I'm going to put a link in the description for Have a Listen. And that's it. Go Habs, go. Go Habs, go. Bye, y'all.